For asphalt paving mixtures and concrete products, not much movement so far. Now, liquid asphalt has responded to the rise in crude oil prices, which have about doubled over the last year. So there may be upward movement in some markets. It really depends what refineries are supplying asphalt for you. But I think generally here in the Mississippi, Missouri, Ohio River system, you do have more choice of asphalt sources than in some other parts of the country, and you're not in for a big upward movement. And concrete with the big new Holcim plant and again the whole river chain to supply cement, I don't think you're at risk of having a big increase in concrete prices. Gypsum is an interesting story. Their prices, as you see, plunged for about 2 years. Just last month, the gypsum companies did put through a 20% wallboard price increase. I just learned from one of you today they've announced another increase for next month. I'm very skeptical that they'll be able to make those stick through the course of the year. As building construction keeps declining, they'll really have a hard time. But lumber and plywood, that's had a big upward movement because there has been some growth in home building already, and I do expect more. And so many mills have shut down. The ones that have stayed open have kept their inventories very lean. So those prices will probably come up. Put all that together, and I think we'll see very little price movement on net. Yes, we're getting some stuff early this year, but it may taper off as building construction continues to decline. But as we go past 2010, the risk certainly grows that with the shutdown in capacity and eventually a growth in demand, not just here in the U.S., but in foreign countries for construction materials, that we'll be back to those bad old days of 2004 to mid-2008 where you had sudden dramatic price spikes. Well, going on from materials to the labor markets. This slide shows a number of things, all of them pretty bad for construction, I guess. Here, the blue line is what's happened to employment throughout the economy other than construction. And you can see that at the beginning of 2009, the economy was losing 600,000 or 700,000 jobs a month. Since then, almost continuous improvement, so that in 4 of the last 5 months, everybody outside of construction has added jobs. Construction continued to lose jobs at just about the same rate, 50 to 100,000 jobs a month. Now in March, it finally broke just into the positive for the first time in 3 years. Added 15,000 jobs out of a base of 5.5 million. And frankly, I think some of that is because of the bad weather in February in many parts of the country. Some of the hires that would have taken place then got pushed forward into March. We'll see if the gains are sustained in April. I'm pretty dubious. In any case, the unemployment rate in construction was still a horrendous 24.9% in March. That's more than double the all-industry average of 10.2%. And these are non-seasonally adjusted figures. The figure should come down as we get more into the construction season, but still will be much higher than the overall economy. Where in construction are those jobs being lost? This graph shows that formerly it was residential. The blue was losing more than 2% of its workers each month. But residential has gradually moved up to almost break even, whereas the non-residential, pretty steady 1% a month loss until this anomalous result in March. As a result, the wage increases that were running at about 5% have nosedived to about a 2% increase in average hourly earnings. Where are the jobs being lost geographically? Everywhere except Alaska. Alaska added a whole 100 jobs between February 2009, February 2010. In that state, that's a whole 1% because they have so few, but certainly not enough to offset the loss of 800,000 jobs in the rest of the country. Now, Missouri had been doing better than the national average until recently. The February comparison, extremely bad, down 22%. That's why you're in the states that are hemorrhaging jobs and that are in red. The worst was Nevada, 28%. I don't think Missouri will continue to do worse. I think it's going to move back to the middle just as it sits geographically. But here are two predictors of where construction activity is going. First is the Architecture Billings Index. This is produced by the American Institute of Architects. Every month they ask about 500 architecture firms, were your billings higher or lower than the month before? And if the number comes out even, they put that at 50. Anything below 50 means shrinking amount of billings, and therefore fewer projects being designed for contractors to bid on and build later on. This number has been well below 50, both the overall and by segment, institutional, commercial, industrial, mixed practice. A more broader indicator of what's ahead for contractors is looking at employment in both architectural services, that's in red on the right, and you can see it stayed at 1% job decline or worse, and engineering and drafting services, the blue line, which has actually touched or gotten above the break-even point 3 times in the last few months. And that kind of summarizes where I think construction is headed. That we will have another year of declining spending, down about 5% as it was last year. It'll be much worse for building construction, although there should be some activity in the retail, the higher ed, the hospital area, and a scattering of stimulus-funded projects, base realignment projects. But the better prospects are in those engineering projects, whether it's power plants, highways, water, wastewater treatment plants. And also here in the St. Louis area, you may see some Corps of Engineers work. They've also got good funding. On the residential, single family will be up 20 to 30%. So will improvements as more people fix homes up for sale or buy homes that have been neglected and fix them up after the sale. But the multifamily still declining at a 20 to 30% rate. So the net increase about 5 to 10%. That should be enough to bring total construction spending back to where it was a year ago, maybe a little bit better for the first time in 4 years. Materials costs probably level with a year ago, but a growing risk that they'll be rising. And labor costs staying very moderate both this year and next. Well, that's my story. I'm not changing it until I get new data. When I do, I'll put it in the Data Digest.